Welcome to the podcast about investing in startups, where existing investors can learn how to get the best deal possible. And those that have never before invested in startups can learn the keys to success from the venture experts. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome to another special release of Investor Stories. On this installment, the experts discuss a startup that they did not invest in, why they passed, and if there was a key learning that now informs their approach. Here's the segment called Why I Passed. On today's special segment, we have Jim Kim of Builders. Jim, can you tell us about a good or a bad pass? A story about a startup that you passed on.
I've passed on a lot of really good opportunities. And, I think everybody looked at Uber at one point and said, all right, well, is this a taxi company or is this now a new mobility company? And some people were smart enough to say, all right, this is going to change the paradigm of transportation completely. I miss that. A lot of people miss that. It's hard. So, especially at the early stage where so many things have to be right and you have to say, this is something I want to work with. It's hard to get it right. This is a very difficult business. And that's why, even the best firms have hit rates around the Mendoza line in baseball, right? So, so it's hard, but I think just being able to be part of these opportunities and see these entrepreneurs and have them come in and present, even if you're not able to get there, but you see them be successful, that's just really awesome.
Are there some common reasons that you find yourself passing?
So many things have to be right. And on top of all of those things having to be right, you're making a guess on the risks that a company will face. And then you have to look at the mitigating factors. It's really hard to say yes, right? I mean, no is a very easy thing to say, right? Somebody comes in the door, you say no because of X. There are infinite many reasons why something could fail. It's the great investors who are able to figure out ways to look at the key risks, identify the mitigants for those risks, help the entrepreneur in putting those risks to bed and helping them scale. And that's just really hard to do. So sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, but at least you're hopeful that as a VC, you're able to identify the risks going into an investment. And then the choice of whether or not you want to take on a company or work with an entrepreneur who has to knock those risks out of the way to win. Mm-hmm. That's the art. That's a tough part.
On today's special segment, we have Courtney Reum of M13. Courtney, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass? A story about a startup that you passed on?
Story about a startup that I passed on. Well, the one that comes to mind is right when we moved to Los Angeles. One of my first friends was a guy named Blake Mykoski who went on to start Tom's Shoes. And I was around him. Well, sorry, I take that back. When I moved to LA, he was just starting Tom's Shoes, so we were a little bit behind him. And we were friends, and he's just a phenomenal guy and phenomenal force. And I remember he didn't explicitly ask me to invest, but I remember kind of thinking, oh, I'm not sure the proposition, this and that. We actually, once we started Vive, I remember we were giving him Vive for lots of Tom's events he was doing. And I remember at one point I was like, I don't know if I want to keep giving him Vive. Like, we're short on inventory and I'm just not sure this thing's gonna work. But I did because of my relationship with him. But it was probably one of my first lessons in, really betting on the person and going, okay, I would take what seems like a pretty good idea, but an incredible founder or founding team over what seems like a great idea and a less than stellar founder. Because he's one of those people that is he was just always going to figure it out. If you heard the other businesses he started, everything from some rental stuff to an online poker network to this and that, guy's full of ideas and something was going to hit. Same thing with someone like a Jamie Siminoff, the founder of Ring. I did learn my lesson enough to know that when I met Jamie, he'd actually just sold a company called PhoneTag.com, which I still use on my phone. So if you call me, it'll dictate the voicemail, kind of like Google Voice. he sold it to Google, and Google actually used that to improve Google Voice. But when you meet someone like that, I just said, okay, I don't know what his next thing is, but I want to back it because I think he's going to figure it out. So it's most of my misses have either been putting too much stock in the idea or not enough stock in the founder. As Kevin Plank, the founder of Under Armour, once said to me when I pitched him on an idea, he said, "Courtney, I'm positive you have $1 billion idea in you. I'm just not sure it's this one." And, if you believe that about people, it's good to make sure you kind of keep an eye on those people that you think are special or going to create things.
Yep. On today's special segment, we have Aydin Senkut of Felices Ventures. Aydin, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass? A story about a startup that you passed on. I know you've got some good ones.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I think the most humbling thing about our portfolio is, despite the fact that we were lucky enough to have a string of exits, I think our enterprise portfolio might be, a multiple bigger than our successes, which is always humbling. But look, I was fortunate enough to see Uber and Airbnb very early on, but passed on both. Two things that I learned from that. From the Uber experience, what I learned is I wasn't the perfect user for Uber, and I kind of underestimated the product, and I just did not use it. Even the MVP, even the first early prototype, the alpha, I think there was a lot of signal in that once you experience that product, you could see that the way it's been re-envisioned, it's been reinvented, that it would be revolutionary for transportation. So I think one of the things that was great about that is we now have a rule that we would never ever pass a company unless we truly tried the product, assuming, of course, it's available. So it's been a very eye-opening thing. But one of the positive things that came out of this is that after we kind of made the unwise decision to pass, we still figured that there might be a second way to play the game. And that's when we found Adyen, because we thought that all these companies like Uber and Airbnb, if their stellar growth was to continue, they were supposed to do the same in international countries. And knowing even Google and Facebook getting into problems with some of those, we thought that maybe a good way to play that game a second time is to back a formative payments company. And not surprisingly, the company we back, Adyen, has been successful in getting some of the biggest names in tech as their customers. So the thesis worked, and we turned the lemon into lemonade, to speak proverbially.
Wow, that's fortunate. I'm curious, how often is it that you guys might have a thesis or a theme, or there might be a market that needs disruption in a certain way, and you go out and look at the landscape and you find the companies that are working in that space and then find one to partner with, versus more inbound related deals where, deal hits your inbox, you look at the market size, you like it, you meet with the team's compelling, and you invest. What's the split on the two of those?
I mean, look, I think especially if you look at the companies that are successful versus overall investments, I think the former approach, the first approach you described, has really kind of been a key ingredient of our success. We call this outbound, meaning that, hey, even if a company has not found us, and Adyen is a good example, as is Shopify. Like, we were looking for a formative payments company, a formative commerce company. Neither of those companies come to us through deal flow. We discovered them through our research, and basically were relentless in getting into these companies until somehow the founder accepted a meeting with us. And after that meeting, the founder somehow accepted or gave us the green light to become an investor. If you look at some of our biggest hits, Shopify, Adyen, Pluralsight, Garden Health, Rovio, some of our biggest IPOs, all of these investments were outbound. One of the things that I learned as an investor is that, on the one hand, deal flow is important, but deal flow is imperfect in the sense that, especially if you're a thematic investor, I don't want to wait like in an office for the right companies to filter through the door and say, oh, like when a great company comes in, I will know it. And yes, that might happen one day by chance, but we are very much driven to take every aspect of chance out of our business. So for that mentality, I think pursuing companies outbound is a much better approach. And I'm not saying that we don't get great companies referred, but it is so happenstance and somewhat random, and, the probabilities are so stacked against you. I think you can always deploy like some good mechanism to increase serendipity on that front. But we found that in order to be able to have or aspire to the hit ratio that we want to achieve, Without a discipline or without kind of an approach to find companies outbound, it becomes extremely difficult.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.